Welcome to the Decide to Move podcast, helping entrepreneurs like you make smart, pivotal shifts in your life and business. Tune in each episode for inspiring stories from brilliant business minds and trailblazers to find out how they made their big moves and how you can too. Now here's your host, author, speaker, business strategist, CEO, and founder of Decide to Move, Monica M. Bijou.
Oh my goodness, I am super excited for my guest today. We're going to be talking about two things that most people do not think they go together. One of those things they either shy away from or they're like, we don't want to talk about it at all. So we're going to dive deep and talk about sex and taxes with Mr. Jonathan Bengel, because he is, as you can see in his background, he has a live show where he talks about naked tax talk all the time. And if you can see how he's dressed, for those that are watching it by video, you're like, oh, okay, he's ready, right? He's ready. So we're here to talk about sex and taxes all day long with Mr. Jonathan Bengel. Hi, Jonathan. How are you today?
Hello, Monica. I'm fantastic. How are you?
I am excited. I have been waiting for us to have this talk for quite some time because you are simply amazing.
Thank you so much. I mean, I fell in love with you, of course, like a few months ago. As soon as I set my ass down next to you, I was like, hello, hello.
He's just real. He's just raw. I'm just so happy to have you. So can you tell our listeners and those that are viewing, they're like, oh, let me go watch this. What she's talking about, how's he dressed? Can you tell our viewers all about you? Like, who are you? Where are you coming in from? As
Oh.
well as what do you do?
Absolutely. So I always like to start out by telling my wonderful, amazing fellow entrepreneurs out there, and actually womenpreneurs. I call them women entrepreneurs, like entrepreneurs. There you go. Anyways, so for my fellow women CEOs and entrepreneurs, and let's be real, girl. The moment you're a business owner, you are a mother effing CEO. All right. So I work primarily with women entrepreneurs to help them to maximize their tax strategies and minimize their taxes. Essentially, here's how it boils down to. As you just introduced me, I'm Jonathan Bengel. I'm the founder of JB Financial, my very first business. I created that almost 18 years ago. I'm also now the founder and creator of my own show called Naked Tax Talk, where we get bare and naked to the truth about your tax lives, baby. And I'm also now the dean of a fake for-profit university called Naked Tax University that we just created a few days ago. And so you can see that I'm just basically a plethora of an entrepreneur, really deep down at heart. But like I said, for the past 18 years, I've created a multi-six-figure company. I've even partnered with multi-seven-figure companies, all in the attempt to minimize and mitigate our clients' taxes. The real dealio is that today women entrepreneurs and LGBT owned companies hire us as their elite tax consultant because most and many of them fear the IRS. And because of that fear, they actually are afraid to be proactive in their tax plans. And so as a result, they continue to overpay. And if you ask me how much it is, it's over $1 billion a year in taxes a year, unnecessarily given to a government that doesn't want it. So as a result of that fear, they overpay and they underdeduct. And so what we did a long time ago was to set out to unlock the mystery of taxation, uncover legal loopholes, and reveal missed opportunities. Bottom line, what we do is we take our women entrepreneurs and our LGBT owned entrepreneurs, we take them from the state of fear, of the unknowing, of the shaking of the hands when they go swipe their credit card to take out their partners to lunch, to the satisfaction of knowing that they got their shit in their hands and they know at the end of the day they're protected, and at the end of the day they know they're in the right and they're legally entitled to the deductions that they'd like to take.
Yep. See y'all. I told you we're gonna be getting naked about taxes and just letting it all out. And so many times people allow their fear, and that's what keeps them, like you said, paying billions of dollars to a government that really don't want it. I mean, they take it and they don't do anything good with it. So I appreciate the fact that that's exactly what you do is you help people. But why do you feel that women, and even like as you were saying, the LGBT there's lots of acronyms
Just
in
say,
there, right?
I mean, I like to say gay, like just gay, but
Yeah.
people really get
Why does the
correct.
population really fear of even doing like as far as taxes? They just kind of give it away and just put in whatever they think. Why do you feel that that's the case?
You know what it is? It's this big scary institution called the government. And at some point or another, some of us probably saw or witnessed or personally experienced a traumatic experience with the government. Be it they took your ass and threw it in jail, be it they targeted you because you were a Mexican driving down the highway and they thought, and you were driving a Buick. That's my personal story, and they thought you stole the damn car, right? So there's a whole different reasons why, because the government as a whole is perceived as it works against you. And we've either seen it, like I said, personally, or we've had others experience it. And the truth of the matter is, I'm actually out on a mission to change that mindset from the government is not our enemy to the government is our friend. In fact, the government is for the people. And if you think about it, people are our friends on many levels. And so I set out many moons ago to discover, like what does it really mean to truly not fear, and to truly not fear the government and let your hair down, essentially, is to basically say, you know what, I realize that if I understand even just a little bit of the law, whether it's criminal, whether it's institutional, contractual, you name it, as long as I know just a teeny nugget, there's power in them there hills, right? So there's a lot of knowledge and a lot of power behind that. And so I just happened, because I'm such a nerd and such a geek, I just happened to just like fall in love with tax law. I loved the complexity of it, but more importantly, I liked the simplicity of it. That's actually very difficult to obtain for many people, but I personally did. And what I saw from it and how I was able to make such a massive firm that I have now is because I understood the principles behind the things that I could deduct, and not seeing it as a something to be afraid of, but seeing it as a reward. And since that's what I specialize in, so I forgot to mention my credentials. I guess I tell my street cred. So let me tell you what I've been pushing. So I'm an IRS Enrolled Agent, means I'm a tax expert, fools. Like I'm telling you right now, if you CPAs out there, I got great CPA friends. They're amazing. They're awesome. I am not one. Don't come knock on my door asking me, can you review my financials? Because the answer is no. But you want me to review your tax return and tell you how much money was left off the table? Now let's talk. I'm also a certified tax coach and a certified tax planner. So what that means is I spend even more freaking hours every single year actually working with other peers like me that strategize on the bigger concepts of what it means to reduce your taxes. Here's the thing. Most people think, most business owners anyways believe, they have a believe they understand some stuff, right? So you'll hear them say like, oh yeah, I write off my meals, and yeah, I take down my mileage, and I do that kind of stuff. But you see, that's just like a one action approach. That's the same thing as you going to your tax preparer every year and giving them your documents and having them prepare a return. There's nothing there. Who cares? But what we do, and this is important, is we strategize, which is a more than one idea. It's more than just one deduction. It's more than one strategy in the sense of entity changement. It's more than hiring people and who do we hire and how do we keep the money in the family. Keep the money in the family sometimes is to our benefit. It's maybe creating multiple companies, and you're still the main beneficiary of those companies. So it's not just one idea. It's not just deducting your meals when you take me out to dinner and schmooze me. It's you're going to take me out to dinner and get me drunk together, and then we'll write that off because we maybe do business together, right? So it's beyond just the simplicity of we go to Starbucks and have a cup of coffee.
Yeah, and a lot of people definitely need to know that, because that's often what people are told and what they know, and they attempt to save a dollar or two to, learn like a minimum of, hey, I can write this off, I can write this off, not understanding that there's other loopholes and different things that are hidden.
Yeah, and so back to your question, I apologize. Why they're afraid? It simply boils down to fear, and it boils down to what they do not know. Now, if you were like me, a child who grew up, unfortunately, Mom, if you're listening to this, we already know the story, so don't you? Girl, her and I hashed it out a few months ago, so we're good. So, but I'll tell you, if you're a child like me that came from extreme poverty, and I define extreme poverty as the fact that my mother raised two boys on a fixed income of $500 a month. And that was what we survived off. You're talking the 80s going into the 90s. And I'm also a child of physical abuse and emotional abuse, and was subjected to it every single day of my life. Almost until I actually fought my mother back, and I was 14 years old when I did that. And what that left a scar on me was, or what it left behind, the residual. If I may, I'm going to get really naked here, obviously, about my personal background. But what it did is it left a scar so deep inside that I didn't even realize it was that deep of a scar. You know, it's kind of like when you cut yourself and then you look at your hand and you're like, how did I get that scar on my hand? And you can't remember how. It's kind of like that. You don't remember, but you know it's there. And so because of that fear, we grow up with this idea of like, I better not talk back to my parents, I better not talk back to my elders, I better not, blah blah blah. And so we become naturally subservient to others. And so we're basically placed into a little teeny box. Well, that's really fear. It's fear of fighting back. It's fear of standing up for who you are. It's fear of claiming your power. And the truth is there's nothing scary about the government, because guess what? Would you believe me if I told you that every American not only has a Bill of Rights in the Constitution, but also has a Bill of Rights as a taxpayer, specifically enshrined in the Internal Revenue Services codes themselves, the revenue modules, the manuals, I mean?
Do tell.
Girl, let me spill some tea here. So let me tell you. So, the point is that we have a Bill of Rights. As taxpayers, we have a fundamental right to contest the taxes that are assessed. We have the fundamental right to go back and say, no, motherfuckers, you're the ones who screwed up on your audits here. I don't think so. You have the right to hire representation, aka an IRS enrolled agent like moi, like me, to step up and get naked for you instead of you having to get naked. Because the reason why I focus on the word naked, it comes from the notion that that's the feeling that people get when you have to derobe in front of somebody you've never ever met before. You know what I mean? Think about all those times when you'd hook up. Now, I personally was a slut when I was younger, just saying. But like those times when you would meet the first time you'd hook up with somebody, it's that initial feeling of like, oh, you're just dreading having to take your clothes off because you're afraid of what they're going to say about you, think about you, and judge you, right? So there comes the shames, honey. There comes the shame, right? And so, needless to say, that feeling of having to derobe and get naked, it's the same feeling taxpayers experience when they get a letter from the IRS. They're afraid to get naked. So the government says, you don't have to get naked, babies. You can hire Jonathan Bengel's EA to go get naked for you, and he'll take care of it for you. And all you have to do is sit back and relax. But I'm going to give a warning out there to my little listeners, to your listeners too. Ready? Don't you be lying to me if we have a consultation. Don't you be keeping secrets from me if we're going to have a consultation. Because I'll tell you why. When my ass gets out there and gets naked, I have to know. I got to know where your breastises lay. I have to know where the nips lay. I have to know if you've got biceps. I need to know if you have chicken flappies underneath your arm. I need to know it all, because I become you when I represent you.
Yeah, and if when he says get naked, he can literally mean that.
For the ones watching the episode, I have a rule. I actually try my best not to show my nips even on my show, because it's not fair. I mean, women can't show theirs, so why, right? So it's my way of showing equity and support. But I'll give your viewers a little bit of a candy shot. So there you go. See? Uh-huh. So yeah.
And you know what? I got to the privilege of meeting you personally in person. And when you talk about somebody who's very passionate about what he does, he's willing to, like literally bear. I think at the conference you wore a jacket with no pants just to say, hey, like I stand behind my brand and this is what I do. Let's really truly get naked. And it's like when you introduce yourself and tell people what you do, they're like, aha, I get it. Okay, that's the person that I know that is willing to go that length, that will really make sure that he represents me correctly instead of half-assing, as people will say, my stuff. So I think it's, I from the moment that we met, it's like introduction. I love that jacket. Now let's talk.
Everyone loves this jacket, girl. Let me tell you. Okay, so I'll tell you a bit of the history for us. So thank you, RuPaul, for those words. So I'll tell you a little bit. So my show, Naked Tax Talk, was born. I gave birth to it. I popped it out. I popped it out of my mouth. July of 2019, and I was at a tax conference called the National Association of Enrolled Agents, and I was actually graduating that year because I finished 3 years of training through the National Tax Professional Institute, and so I actually became a fellow. So I'm also a fellow of the National Tax Professionals Institute because I've studied specifically how to represent people. This is what's really key here. So I was so freaking ass cold. All right, in 2018, so we got to back up. So in 2018, my ass was cold in Vegas. So I'm wearing the bathrobe to the hotel in the room, and no one actually approached me or said anything about anything. So just before July, I get the rumor that people are asking if the guy in the white robe is going to show up again. So I take it upon myself to take an actual beautiful bathrobe. I embroidered it with JB Financial, which is my first company, and I decked it all out, girl. Like I decked it out like I was going to wear this thing like no one's business. So I show up and I'm in the robe, and of course people are coming up and they're like, "What's with this? What's with the bathrobe? What's with the bathrobe?" And eventually, what happened is out of my mouth I spit, "Oh, I'm the host of a show called Naked Tax Talk, where we get naked and bear down to the truth about your taxes. And we talk about sex positive, personal development, business development, and finance." And it was like instant fire. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. Okay. So I run up after the conference and I'm like Googling to make sure the domain was available. I'm buying the domain. I'm registering the business in Arizona. Yes, girl, when you're someone like me, you know how to LLC like toot sweet. So I'm like pop, 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 right? So I still have no idea what this show is really about. I just said it. And you could argue and say it's still in development. So needless to say, in the very beginning, the notion was we were using a bathrobe to brand the company because that's what I wore, and that was the attachment to the bathrobe. If I might diverge just for a segundo here, um, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, it's even as a taxpayer, honestly, it's very important that we do not become too attached to our ideas about what business should be about, or the business that we create and we think it's going to become X, Y, and Z. Because if we attach ourselves to that and the outcome does not come out, then we become angry, we become disappointed, that creates depression, and that creates the feeling of failure. And then next thing you know it, you're spinning out of control. So instead, you just kind of allow yourself to be free and be naked on the beach, babies. And you just say, okay, I'm going to run with this. I don't know where it's going, but I have an idea of where it's going. So Naked Tax Talk had originally been a bathrobe concept. So in fact, for our future events, we're going to have bathrobes for our graduates of Naked Tax University. And so we have it just became the bathrobe. It has since evolved into basically being completely naked on my show. I have yet to show my goodies. I'm going to become a little more popular. You know, we need those Pornhub.com sites to kind of have those unreleased episodes. You know what I mean? So I'm waiting for the goods. So anywho's blues. So so I get this bathrobe. And so what happens is I'm in Vancouver. I'm learning how to become an inspirational, motivational speaker, y'all. And the truth is that yes, if you listen to my compelling stories, I think I would motivate you and inspire you. And so nonetheless, I'm in Vancouver and I go, you know who would have really cool bathrobes? It was in Chinatown we were in. So I was like, it's in Chinatown. I'm going to find me a bathrobe. Like, you know, those silky ones? So my girlfriends and I, we spot this Chinese jacket shop. It was called, actually, I'm looking at my jacket. It was called Zahara. And we go in, and it's all women's jackets, pretty much like almost back to back, wall to wall, with like this much of guy stuff, my life. And so there's like this much, right? And I see this amazing jacket that you, Monica, saw me in. And my girlfriend, she put it on, and I was like dying. I was dying. but I was also like really a bit embarrassed to actually try it on and to try it. And if your viewers cannot guess, I'm as gay can be, and I've known that since forever, right? So I'm like, okay, well, you know what? Even though I'm embarrassed and I'm shy, I'm gonna put this thing on. And so I put it on, and when I put it on, it reminded me of Joseph and his technical jacket. You know what I mean? The color. I just felt this confidence that just showered over me. And I turned around and I paid the woman top price for it. I walked out and I had it on. I wore it out of the shop, and the feeling I got reminded me of the feeling when I was wearing the bathrobe in Vegas, and it reminded me of the feeling when I would walk down the hallways in school being called faggot, queer, homo, and being spit on and being beat up. That was the same emotion that I was feeling from the eyes that I was getting eyed on, basically. But I'll never forget the moment it flipped and it changed. It's when I walked into a discount store. It was like a clearance store. We walked in, and everyone in this store, we're talking like 10 people max, could go into this tiny little store. Every one of them, oh my God, I love this jacket. This jacket's amazing. This is a beautiful jacket. What is it you do? And so I started saying, well, I'm a host of Naked Tax Talk, and da, da, da. And it was at that moment that I realized this jacket wasn't about my shame. It wasn't about me being less than. It wasn't any of that. It represented to me all that I am, which is a powerful motherfucker who knows tax law like nobody's business and enjoys and loves saving women specifically and LGBT owned companies millions of dollars in taxes year after year. That's what this jacket represents.
And it's like I love that story, and thank you for getting raw and naked and sharing that. And it's like that jacket represented like a covering, a protection, something that you have not had in your life. And what I love is the fact that you paint your own way. You literally say, okay, you know what, I'm in this situation, and you know, my show is all about people who make pivotal shifts, and you do that so flawlessly and easily. And you know, whether you have shame, embarrassment, you're able to do it in a way that people can't see that, but you do it because every time you go to a conference, you're hit with different people, right? Different people, different thoughts, different entrepreneurs that are stuck in their own way of what they think a person should look like. And you show up and you totally just blow people away with just being authentic and being yourself.
I experienced that in its true entirety. You know, if I may digress just for a moment, by the way, that's my favorite word. But if I may digress for a moment, I will say that I have like I'm doing some magic moves. It's a little lint or something. Okay. This is how we get it. This is how we change subject.
Our new thing.
But it's true. Okay, wait, darn it. I had a great thought and I totally lost it because of the stupid flip. You know what though? You know what I call these moments? We're just not meant to hear it. That's all. So we just move on. We just move on forward to
And
the
it'll
next
come
thing.
back. That's the great
It
thing,
will.
is it will definitely come back. So can you give some secrets to all of the people that are listening, exactly some things that they can do so that they can actually start, one, getting very real and raw and naked with their taxes, and then some loopholes that you've discovered that is important for people to know about?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think the first thing, well, there's a lot of first, honestly. Let's be really real. So if I had to like just close my eyes and like point at something and like land on something, like that's what we're gonna do because there's lots of firsts you people should do.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that to get really raw with who you really are is so if this may or may not be tax related, but here's what it is. Ready? It's about you truly looking at yourself and saying, you know what? I accept the fact that I've not looked at my tax returns in the last 2 years or the last year. I accept the fact that I've kept no receipts. I accept the fact that I could give two shits about filing a tax return. You know, it's about you truly saying, I accept X, Y, and Z. Or maybe you're the reverse. Maybe you're like the clients that I also work with, which is everything is detailed. Everything has a cross-reference to a cross-reference. All their books are tidy, ready to go, and prepare a tax return or whatever the case may be, right? If that's you, that's good too. If you're really anal, which I am not, but if you're really anal, and I'm into that,
How
if you're
about
really anal, then you accept the fact that you're really anal. You know what I'm saying?
or you have those people that's in the middle.
And
I
then you
got
have
some,
all
I got some receipts and I got some things written down, but there's a lot that's missing.
So, and exactly. So what you do is you have to honestly come to accept you for you at that level, because I actually see a lot of this. What happens to the clients will show up, and even your friends, right, or people in just jest will talk with me, and I really believe in a judge-free zone, because who am I at the end of the day, right? Let's be real here. Who am I to judge? So they will stay with this like this scrunched up body behavior, and they'll say, I've not filed like for the last 4 years. Like tell me I'm a bad boy or a bad girl, right? Like shame me, please. And instead, what I say to them, which is true, is it's okay, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with what you're doing. It's now we just move forward. It's kind of like ignorance that exists in our world. You know what I mean? This is what we do. This is our life as human existence, is to walk through this fog of ignorance, of not knowing. And it isn't until the moment that a little bit of light shines through, or a little bit of that fog is removed, you can get a peek at what is possible. And once you get a peek at what is possible, then now you can take action with awareness. Now you become aware, you keep that at the forefront, and then you move with mindfulness. You move with the intention to move forward through it. So that is the reality. So when you come to terms with saying, I've not filed my tax returns in 3 years, that's just you admitting for the first time that you are like in AA or something like that, right? Like you're raising your hand, and I'm like, I'm Jonathan, and I've not filed my tax returns for 5 years. You know, it's like admitting it, accepting it, and now you seek, as they say in the AA programs, and not that I'm one, by the way, I've never actually, for the record, I attended an NA meeting for a relative of mine that was dealing with a bad drug habit. So this is why I know all this stuff. But the truth is now that you've let it go, you can actually reach out for help, and you can get help. And here's the thing, you have two options now, right? Because life's all about choices. You can either continue to do it yourself, which, well, we know where that's been, or you can rely upon a professional to take over for you. Now, here's where I draw the line. Here's where I'm a little bit different. I believe in educating and empowering the people that work with me. The ones that are like, oh God, like, please don't tell me about what section codes and whatever. Now, I don't necessarily do that, but my rule is that I am allowed to educate my clients on what is happening in their tax life, in their cash life, in their finances, in their business. This is what I'm allowed to do. Because again, we are sick, we're injured, and we're needing help. It is no different than me coming to see a psychologist for help. It's no different than me going to a lawyer when I commit a crime, right? Not that I have personally, but like when you commit a crime, right? It's no different than going out and seeking help, or better yet, seeking a doctor that's a professional, knows what they're doing.
Yeah, you know what? Thank you so much for sharing that. And as you were talking, like you talked from the very beginning about being naked with your taxes, it's really about vulnerability. So many people struggle with vulnerability, and even tying it in their business, that people get in trouble with their business because of the fact that they're afraid to say, yo, I messed up, I made a mistake, help me fix it, or help me go forward. How do I go beyond where I am right now? And same thing, like you were saying with your taxes, that you have a group of people that really don't get comfortable with their taxes. I mean, we had our own president that didn't even want to share his taxes. Like, what are you afraid of? Why aren't you, why are you afraid to get
I'll tell
naked?
you. Would you like to hear my semi-professional opinion on that matter?
Yes, please do.
Okay, so I refer to that person as the Orange Cheeto. So first and foremost, okay, so the Orange Cheeto, when he and his bag of when he was placed into the bag of orange Cheetos, and he slipped out. That's what happened. And let's be real, honey, you pick up an orange Cheeto, you can't put it down. I mean, you just can't, and they're really delicious. Okay, so this is why the Orange Cheeto wins. That's the first one. So he escapes his bag, right? Now here's the story, Maury. Do you think this dude does his own taxes?
Of course not.
Hell no. The guy has a conglomerate of firms that strategize with him and proactively plan with him. to minimize and to almost practically, I'm sure, mitigate his taxes. Now, why he doesn't actually want the public to know, I'm the first to probably even say this that I'm aware of, and it goes down like this. You see, tax law is actually very complex. There is nothing simple about it. That's the honest truth. Now, I can distill it down into its basic understanding, like when I talk about sex and entities, which maybe we'll talk about that. But when we distill it down to its basic core, fine, we can understand that at a very simple level. But tax law is so much more complex than you can even imagine. I mean, we're talking over 700 books worth of tax law that one has to master. Now, here's the story. I guarantee you, not that I guarantee you, but I'm pretty damn close to tell you that if we were to see his personal tax returns, the general public would have no understanding of what it actually means. Now, for us tax experts, we would, because we would see what was going on, right? And the name of the game as a taxpayer, which he has the same rights as you do, which is to mitigate your taxes legally. All right, legally. So we can debate all day long what is legal and illegal, what's ethical or unethical, what's moral or not moral. Tax law does not care. It cares that you're following the rules. So in his case, he probably has a lot of shit ton of money and a shit ton of businesses that he's part of, right? We're talking, he's probably has like a book this thick, one tax returns like this, right? And he's got multiple more tax returns his name's associated with, either through passive, either because he's a shareholder, either because he's a business partner or a passive partner, right? He can be all these different things, and his fingers are in everyone's. Honey, he said it himself. He grabs him by the pussy. That's where his hands are. That's where he's at. He's all over this pussy, all over the place. That's what he's doing, right? That's what he's doing. And so what he's afraid of is that we're going to see the guy making cajillions of dollars. And then it's the tax experts like myself that are going to analyze it and come back to the world, which is fair, and he's allowed to, and say to the world, so that you know the guy made $1 trillion, but his effective tax rate was 2%. Now, who the fuck do you think that's going to piss off? A lot of Americans.
Mm-hmm.
Because the people that vote for him typically are the working class. Am I right? Majority
Yep.
that do. And what's going to happen is they're going to go, let me understand this correctly. So I barely get paid $7.25 an hour federal regulations for minimum wage. I barely make $200 a week. And when I take home my pay, I only get like $90. So let me understand this. I make less money. I'm in extreme poverty. Meanwhile, you're the quadrillionaire out there, and your effective tax rate is less than mine. You see, the average American who does not proactively plan actually realizes close to a marginal tax rate, if they're really successful, of about 40% when you add up all the taxes together. If you're working with tax planners like myself, you typically drop down into about 15-20% max, and then your effective tax rate even drops even below that. So the truth of the matter is, I know because I live it, because I am it. And I know that he's thinking the same thing because he knows that, remember what I said earlier? The government is for the people, by the people. And when they realize that these bajillionaires essentially are not paying their fair share of taxes, quote unquote, all hell is going to break loose, honey. And we will see the biggest tax reform you'll ever have seen in the planet. Because that's the truth. And that's what he is trying in all of his power to protect, to prevent us. Because the truth is the majority of taxpayers do not understand the complexity. And they will look at it from a simple side of it. So that's my opinion on the matter. But then you see my heart comes back and goes, well, you also have to think about, though, the business owner. That's you and me. That's the listeners are listening to this. We are entrepreneurs. And so that same government that's protecting the orange Cheeto to give him such a low effective tax rate is also afforded to us as entrepreneurs. So before we all go fuck it up and try to do tax reforms, just know you're screwing yourself too. And if you don't use lube, honey, that hurts. So, the thing is we have to be very careful that we're chasing a tax return to reveal what? You see what I mean? There's the danger. It's a double-edged sword. because
Mm-hmm.
we all benefit from the same things he is benefiting from.
And when you talk about loop, what exactly are you referring to?
A loophole are where, for example, um, I'm trying to think of some loopholes that are not. I'm trying to think of. Let me process some simplicity, okay? Because I gotta like pull this down a little bit. Um, okay, here's a loophole. So travel. Okay, so here's a freebie. I'm giving you guys a tip, and always just the tip, baby. So it's just soaking. Okay, I'm not doing anything more. We're just soaking it. So, and also, I should further say that before I open my mouth anymore about this topic, my lawyers have advised me to tell everybody who listens to me that this is for quote unquote entertainment purposes, and that you should take whatever I say and actually go speak to a professional like myself before you get real advice. Just saying. So, what
Disclaimer, I love it.
Yep. So what we'll talk about is travel. Okay. So majority of the people we work with, that you are familiar with, we're all authors. We're authors, coaches, and coaches. Yeah, authors, coaches, and speakers. Right. This is
Mm-hmm.
the genre that a lot of people typically are in. And as a result, we travel a lot. I mean, we're travel, 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 girl. Like, I mean, last year I was in more countries than I can count. No, just kidding, just two. I was in, I was all over the country, right, attending different events and whatever. So, this loophole I'm about to share with you and your listeners has the potential to impact your taxes to the point of about 37.5%. You hear that?
You're welcome, people.
That's right, Monica. That's right, honey. It's just for you. It's because I love you. So here we go. Ready? Travel. Law states. Now I don't know the actual code itself because I don't remember that stuff. But I do know most of it, but not like this. Okay. My point is you can find it under Title 26 of the United States Code. That's where you'll find tax law. And so in there, you're going to find deductions, and then you got to go to something called publications. And inside the publications, it will tell you how the law is being interpreted and how it should be applied. And then you might have to then go find notices from the IRS and Treasury guidelines to further tell you how you can use the law. So, needless to say, there is this thing called travel. What travel means is, by the way, let's back up just a moment. Before a business owner can take a deduction on their tax return, before they can write it off, they have to ask two fundamental questions. Is it ordinary and is it necessary? And if the answer to both of these is yes, then you may have a deduction. Now, notice I didn't say you do, I said you may, because we still have to look at the facts and circumstances on an individual basis. Needless to say, back it up now. So let's go forward. Boom, 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 boom. Now I'm in travel. So Uncle Sam, that's what I refer to him, the IRS, I refer to them as Uncle Sam. So Uncle Sam, he gets that entrepreneurs need to move about. He gets it. He knows that we're all pop and show, by the way. How many of us have heard the word imposter syndrome? I hate that word, by the way, but how many of us have heard of imposter syndrome? Honeys, listen, if I'm going to $1 million cocktail party, I got to look the part. Uncle Sam recognizes this. Now, for the record, clothing is non-deductible expense, okay? So what he says is, okay, well, you got to go to the posh hotels and you got to go to the posh cocktail parties and you got to go and you got to make an appearance. You got to get there. So you might get there by your car, which is a different deduction. We might get there by the bus, Greyhound, if you want to Greyhound it. Who cares? Just don't tell anybody. Maybe you get there. Maybe you get there through the airplane. Maybe you get there on a boat called a cruise. Maybe you get there on Uber or through a taxi. Maybe you get there on a train. You get it, right? Transportation. So traveling means I go from point A to point B, typically greater than 50 miles outside of your home base. All right, so this opens up now a deduction to what is not normally deductible, which is it opens it up now to the ability to deduct the hotel I stay in. So if I want to, I could stay in a Motel 6 or a no-tell motel. I could stay there, pay a cheap overnight rate. Did that. I was 15 years old. That's a whole other story for another night. And you'll love this story. So it's a good story to tell. And you'll stay at a no-tell motel, or you could stay at the Ritz-Carlton. It does not matter. Uncle Sam goes, honey, as long as you're there for business, you're entitled to that deduction, right? Nor does he care about how much that price is. If your ass can afford to stay in a luxurious hotel at $1 million a night, so be it. Knock yourself out, right? So this is what's important. So traveling. Inside that travel, I have I have my food, which there's limitations there for the most part, unless it's. Anyways, you see how I go technical? So meals. It's also going to include your lodging, and it's going to include your transportation to get to where you're going. So that all falls under travel. Business intention, right? To go there with the intention to conduct business. Very important. Okay, whether it's for a conference, whether it's because you and I want to rendezvous in Paris and have a glass of wine overlooking the Champs-Élysées and talk taxes, we can do that too, right? So
On
you get
your
where I'm going
dime,
with
yes,
this.
we can.
And so, well, that's okay because Uncle Sam helps with that cost, right? Because I'm going to deduct it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hey. So you're going to pay me $1 million, and I'm going to deduct $1 million in travel. See? Anywho's blues. So check it out. So what happens now is the rule says is okay. So you got to be there for business. Cool. This loophole, the loophole, says otherwise. Says that if my ass stays one extra night and I want to go and have a gay old time and check out the bathhouses, or I want to go check out Disneyland on my own, or I want to go check out whatever, or I want to go by the beach, or I want to stay an extra night, Uncle Sam ain't going to say no to you. He's okay with that. And I'm going to record that in my books.
See, people.
Now, here's the dealio, Emilio. If I stay there for 2 days, then 3 days, then 4 days, then I have to go into something called a percentage. Now I have to come back and say, well, okay, so if I was there for 2 weeks, but 1 week was all business, and the second week it was convenient to stay longer, right? I only can take that percentage. In this case, it'd be 50%. That's still not a bad deal, right? So that's something to be. So that's a massive loophole. Massive loophole.
I
Now,
like that.
here's but people get spanked. You see, so I just shared with you, so you could do a lot of damage. Okay, a lot of damage. So let me now tell you how you offset the damage. So the offsetting of the damaging now is the document. Oh, dang it, I get away. I used to have a joke with that. A documentation, right? You call it the D. And I'm talking about my D. I'm talking about documentation. So it's about documenting where and what you're doing. Now, by the way, there's another loophole that's more of a limiter. So it's kind of like cars, right? They put limiters. When it comes to cruises, that's where your butt hits limiters, because cruises specifically have limitations. So just be aware that you can't just deduct the whole entire cruise, even though you might be there for the whole time for business. There are limits, and there are limits to how long, to the amount of money. And there's also limits to how you get to places. So even though I can travel, so disclaimer, right? Even though I can travel, if I got to go from I live in Phoenix. If I go from Phoenix to New York, and I decide, well, I'm going to take a ship there, and I catch it in California, and it goes all the way down to the Panama Canal, and then it goes all the way up the East Coast, right? Uncle Sam's saying no to that. He doesn't, because you're doing that on purpose. You're just jacking him now. You're jacking him, and he knows it. See, the guy's smart. He's like, don't be fooling me. No, shortest distance to your final destination. Does that make sense?
Yes, it
So
does.
with that being said, so it's about documenting. So what are you documenting, Monica?
Yeah, let's hear it. What are you documenting, Jonathan?
You're documenting the purpose. That's really important. So why are you going? Right? Is it for an event, for a coaching event, for a business retreat? Is it for your shareholder meetings? Is it for your employee meetings? Why? Tell me why. And then I also need to have the receipts at the end of the day to prove it, right? So many of us now, thank goodness, thanks to modern technology, everything's done through email or through an electronic version of some kind. I tell my clients, go and create a folder we use Google. I create a folder in Google in my email, and I call it business expense. And then I subcategorize that even further. So I have ones for business expense and then for travel. So when I get the receipt, my ass goes in there and it assigns it to the proper envelope. Why is this important? Because all of us are afraid of the big O A. Yes, assholes. We are all afraid of them. And they all work. No, just kidding. So we're afraid of assholes in the sense of audits. We are afraid of getting caught with our pants down. I know I am to this day. So I don't want to get caught with my pants down. So the first thing you can do to build a really good belt around your waist is to document it. And so again, tell them what was the purpose, who did you meet, the receipts will have the time, the date, all that stuff. When was it paid for? In accounting, we use this amazing trick called accrual or basis accounting, accrual or cash basis accounting, and both of them have separate tax consequences to you, the taxpayer. But by default, every single one of us is on something called a cash basis, meaning that when I spend the money is when I record the expense, and when I receive the money for my work is when I count it as income. That's the default programming that we are in this matrix. So cash basis, right? Now, again, they want to know when, how much, and where to. And again, you're proving that. Because when you go back, again, if you go to a cruise, very important on a cruise, the organizer needs to have mandatory meetings on this ship. Every day has to be business related, and I think they have to spend 75% of the time allocated to business networking. Right, like you've got to be in the hull of the ship, feeling it rock and forth. You can't be out there enjoying the sun, and doing that's for after hours. That's for staying up all night long until the sunrise. Like that's when your ass does it. So anyways, so this is really important for all of us because many of us authors, speakers, and coaches, this is what we do. We travel. So imagine if you could just plan one extra day. Oh, but could I tell you there's another loophole?
Of course you can. You guys are welcome.
So gets me all. Okay, so this one's part of my favorites. So I happen to have a full-time staff. I have a director of operations that manages all of our incoming and outgoing and all that stuff, right? And because I understand taxes really well, and this is stuff I share with my clients, by the way, and we coach them on how to get to where I'm at, to the point where I just go, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that on purpose because I know what the tax law says, right? So in this particular case, there are ways in which we can compensate the people that work for us. See, I can only do this for my employees that give me, the employer, a W-4, and then I give them a W-2. Okay, so 4 for 2. No, just kidding. So now, because they give me these forms, I have employees, and because I have employees, they're my bitch. Okay, all of them. All my bitch. Why? Because I control everything they do from the time they get up. No, just kidding. But I do in a way, because I say, if I demand you be in my office at 8 in the morning, your ass better be in my office at 8 in the morning. If it's not, you're fired. Toodles noodles, right? This is the control. You come to my office, and if I expect you, as we know, there's laws that protect a lot of things. But if I say to you, my job requires you to wear a uniform, and you don't show up in the uniform, I send your ass home without pay until you come back with the uniform, right? So I have total control. That's why I say you my bitch. Total control. So like dominatrix, like I'm the dom and you're the sub. Like I'm gonna beat you around because you let me. That's what you do in exchange for working for me. So anyways, so because of this, Uncle Sam goes, but you know what, JB, and you know what, taxpayers, people who work for you are people. They're human beings. They are called human working capital, meaning that without them, you can't do the shit you want to do. And if you don't take care of them, and if you don't treat them fair and equal, and compensate them fair and equally, then what's the purpose of having an employee? So Uncle Sam encourages us and wants us to spend money on our employees. So how do we spend the money? We pay them a wage. We contribute to their retirement account called FICA, Mandatory Social Security and Medicare. We might even contribute to a profit sharing program or their 401k or something like that as well. We might even say to them, you know, Monica, this year I have a choice. I can either pay you a $4,000 bonus, okay, for your effort for working with me. And here's the thing, because you work with me, you would know this. When I give you that bonus, almost half of it's gone. Of that $4,000 I'm about to cut you a check for, two of it is already spoken for at least. Maybe a little bit less for my experts out there. But the point is you're going to go home with just 2 G's. I'm going to give you 4, but you're going to get 2. Does that seem fair to you?
No.
Uh-uh.
Mm-mm.
So Uncle Sam's like, but I want my share, right? But yet he's going, JB, he's nudging like this. He's like, Monica, 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 Monica. Tell him you'd rather take him to a full paid travel trip where you guys go and do some team building. Tell him that, right? So then I turn around and I go, Monica, instead of me paying you $4,000, why don't you come join me for an entire week at a tax conference where I will pay for everything for you, your hotel, your travel, your accommodations, your food while you're with me, your lodging, your booze, your drinks, you name it, entertainment, all of it can no longer deduct entertainment. Strike that from the record. But the point is I can take your ass with me and we can deduct all this stuff. And it comes out to about $4,000 because I'm an accountant and I did the math. Or better yet, the accountant that I hired told me I can give you up to 4,000. Which option would you like?
I would take where I have an all expense paid trip. Do I get to pick where we're going? I mean, I'm just
we do and we do not.
I have to negotiate up in here. I'm a negotiator. I'm good at what I do.
That's right. So in this particular case, right, I'm taking as a business owner, I'm going to take my staff with me to learn the same skills or get valuable skills with me. So in this case, you would say yes, and that's exactly what happened. Is my director said yes, and so now all of a sudden they have a full paid travel experience, right, with the full enchilada spelled out for them. We spend an entire day spending team building, literally like going into the park and having great discussions and strategizing about our future. That's all business related, right? Then I gave her the rest of the evening to go do whatever the hell she wanted, and because I can give her something called a stipend for working with me every night, that's her money to go spend however she wants. No judgment, right? So the loophole is that I could have given her 4 G's, she would have paid 2 of it to the government. Instead, she went on a full paid trip with a stipend attached to it that equated to the same amount of value. And out of it, she got a full paid, like I said, the hotels, the traveling, the whole experience. And she also got the knowledge in order to continue to help me to make her more valuable to me, which also means more valuable to my clients.
There you go. So you can take that to the bank.
And almost cash it.
Exactly. Hey, but fun, sometimes people need to have a little fun, and you know what I mean? And that fun means like, yeah, I'm team building, I'm learning stuff, but I'm also getting an opportunity to get away from the office and really, and a lot of times that's where the good juices, the creativity happens, is away from your not like in the office, sitting behind your desk kind of thing. So yeah. Well, we can talk all day long. I mean, honestly, because we've actually had an experience where we were like talking for like 4 hours, just back and forth because of all the great knowledge and just your personality is just so amazing. So how can people connect with you and just continue to follow you?
OM Jeepers Weepers, I'm so glad you asked. Okay, so first things first, though, I got to set them up, okay, if I may. So what I want to share really fast, if I may, let's see if we can do this. Okay, so I've been doing this 18 years, like I said, and I started paying attention to the most common character traits of my taxpayers. And I categorized them into 4 types of personality traits as a business owner, right? And as it relates to taxes. So what and then of course I turned around and made it fun. So what I discovered is you could be a naked person when it comes to your taxes. You could be a bring your own robe kind of person. You could be a fluffy bathrobe, or you could be a utility bathrobe as it relates to your taxes. And so if they would like, they can text me. So it's one word, all one word, let's get naked. And they text it to 555-888. So 555-888. And when they do, they will be entered Censor Bot, which he's not here today, but I have him. He's a pretty high dude, and he will actually take you into our spa experience where we'll ask you some personality questions about your taxes. Really, honestly, it's all about your taxes. And then at the end of it, you'll get your results. You'll find out what kind of person you are. And then the cool thing about it is because you also texted us, we're giving away an Excel sheet organizer for your business, which means that if you don't have like an accounting program, we took this worksheet and you essentially every month you track your expenses. So you put in how much did you pay for rent, how much did you pay for what, you just put it in from your bank statement, copy and paste, right? You just move it over. And then at the end of the year, when you go see your preparer or even us, you now have something that's viable, that's actually that you can actually be utilized by your preparer, which makes their life a lot more easier. Not that our lives aren't easy, it's just it makes it a little bit easier. And quite honestly, the turnaround time is that much quicker for you to get the things that you need to get done. So that's what happens. So let's get naked to 555-888. Or as I always say, if you guys just want to get naked with me and want to know more about what we do, let's get naked at nakedtaxtalk.com. And so they can find me on YouTube. I have a channel, my show, Naked Tax Talk Raw. It's on YouTube, and we air Wednesdays and Thursdays Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific. And right now the show is going through a little bit of a metamorphosis because, again, I'm not attached to it. And what I mean by that is that Wednesdays are moving to, it's a solo play with me on Wednesdays. And then on Thursdays, I bring on a guest, so it's more of a duality.
And that's great. And I honestly would say, like, I know when people are like sex and taxes, how do you combine the two? As you got to see, you have such a beautiful way of comparing the two, but it's true. Like a lot of times people feel that they got, ripped off, and we can just name a couple of things and I'll try to keep it, on this side. But honestly, it's like people just feel like they get screwed over when it comes to their taxes, and you think you're getting one price and you're like, this is all I got, and then they're like, well, how come that person got this and I didn't? And so now you have two loopholes that you learned about today. And like I said, you guys are welcome for that. And because, and as he says, you still need to seek your own tax attorney unless you're going to hire him, or a tax planner, unless you're going to hire Jonathan personally. So is there any last words that you would like to share with my listeners, viewers, your listeners, your viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. The whole kit and caboodle. So first things the last thing I will say is, at the end of the day, let's just remember one very important thing. And that is, every single one of us has one simple wish. We wake up every day thinking about this. It's the wish to be happy. And as entrepreneurs, our wish to be happy means that we're keeping more of the money that we make in our pockets. That's what ultimate happiness is, because what that then does is it takes away the worry of how do I pay for X, Y, and Z. And honestly, like I said, as a child of poverty that came from nothing, that had to find that was so proud at the age of 17 years old to find 25 cents to be so happy to go buy an apple so that I could eat. To go from that to the point now where I'm like, how many apple bags do I want today? 5 or 10? That is what entrepreneurship is. And that is what happiness ultimately boils down to.
And that is considered a mic drop. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for being with me today and teaching people how to, tie in sex and taxes, and like literally just start on that journey of keeping their money so that they can do the bigger and better things that they want to do with it. And thank you for getting raw and telling your story. And I know that there's layers and layers to who you are. And I appreciate you just being that authentic person that shows up raw and naked.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you all for joining me for another episode of Decide to Move podcast with Mr. Amazing Jonathan Bengel. And until the next time, you guys have a great day.
And thank you, Monica, for having me on your show. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anytime. You are always welcome.
Thank you for listening to Decide to Move podcast with Monica M. Bijou. If you are ready to make a pivotal shift and take your destined position in the world, then schedule a free discovery call by going to www.decidetomove.com. For all links mentioned in today's show and to listen to previous episodes, go to www.decidetomovepodcast.com. And remember, we've all been delivered rotten fruit in our past. We can choose to chew on the rotten fruit trying to convince ourselves it's what we want, or we can become the fruits of our labor and create an incredible, fulfilling, and inspiring life and business out of it. You have what it takes to create the life you want.